Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Charlotte Canion. Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Hi, I'm your host, Charlotte Canion, and the author of the 2018 Best Self-Help Book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents. And I'm known as the voice of the caregivers. Today, we have the honor of interviewing W Van Alystine. Now, he has a colorful history. He's a chef, a Navy vet, a singer, and a songwriter. We'll learn all about that as we interview BW. How are you doing?
Okay. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Usually I like to ask a little bit about your background and your family. Of course, I've told them a little bit, but tell us, what got you into the Navy and, how you got into this and a little bit about your family.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and I was a professional model. My mom was a model. I kind of fell into that and kind of fell into the acting thing while I was there, and did a few commercials and got a chance to work on the set and be on a few episodes of Spencer for Hire when it was running against the law. I did a few episodes of that program. And then when about I was 13 or so, I discovered that I liked to sing. And one of my favorite musicians, singers, was Johnny Mathis. I remember vividly discovering his albums and just absolutely falling in love with that music and the way that he sang the songs. And from there, I would tour up and down the East Coast singing, and moved to culinary school once I graduated high school. And all my life I've spent in the kitchen, cooking and baking and all of that. And that kind of segued into going in the Navy because I wanted to see the world. And the Navy, I hear, they go places. So that's what I did. I left home, told everybody I'm joining the Navy, and went pretty quickly. A few weeks after I signed, we were off.
And so you've seen the world.
Yes, I've been everywhere. Yes.
And I understand that the world actually influenced your writing. Can you tell us who you mentored and who did you follow?
Yeah, I love fairy tales and stories, and everywhere I went, there was some sort of folk tale. And so listening to a lot of folk tales over the years, my mom used to read to us when we were little, Brothers Grimm, Hans Christian Andersen, that sort of thing. That kind of got me going in the right direction. My teacher, I had a fifth grade teacher, wonderful fifth grade teacher who read all of the Roald Dahl books. And so I loved stories and storytellers. And everywhere I seemed to go, there were these little pockets of people telling stories, and you had a whole bunch of kids and adults sitting around listening to stories. And half of the stories were in other languages, of course, and I didn't understand a word they said, but the way that they told the story, you could follow along somewhat. You didn't need to know all of the words, but it was so animated that it held my attention. And so I would go up later and ask them about, what was the story? What was the story about? And then go look it up and find it in English, if there was an English translation to it. And I love the whole aspect, fairies and different stories about heroes and dragons and that kind of things. That's the kind of stuff I like.
The mythology of it, or some of the myths and some of those stories, it sounds like it what's influenced you, and your travels allowed you to see the different countries. Now, you were a chef. Have you?
Yes.
I've read bits and pieces, and I know about the sweet lands and the
Oh, yes.
ice cream sea and all. And I'm going, oh my gosh, this guy, I wasn't sure who I would see here. You might have been real robust because you
Oh.
like to eat.
Well, that I have a lot to thank. I had some wonderful chef instructors. I went to Newbury College Culinary in Brookline, Massachusetts. This was back in the 80s. And all of my chef instructors, save for the pastry chef, who wasn't really heavy, she was just very stout. She's from Belgium. But all of my chef instructors were very slender. And there is a mindset with that we only eat enough to sustain life. We don't pack food on our plates. Portion control is the thing. So I learned it very well. I learned it too well that even in the military, I was painfully thin. I had 0% body fat, which they gave me 1% because they couldn't measure zero. And I had a 27-inch waist right up until my 30s. So I learned it very, very well. You only eat enough to sustain life, and portion control is everything. And yeah, that's just, I love to cook.
Well, now, so you weren't a chef in the Navy, because reading your bio, you were a chef in the Navy.
Yes, I did cook in the Navy.
You studied before, and then you became now, were you a chef afterwards? Did you?
Yes, coming out, I got a gig at the Capitol Hyatt in Washington, D.C., and we did some wonderful things there. I got to meet a lot of folks that worked at the White House, and kind of did a few things for them as well when they were shorthanded, because I was prior military, and you had that really.
You had that security check that they have to have.
Yes, yeah, pretty much. I can get as far as the kitchen, in that. But it was fun. It was some fun work, and it was a lot of work. From there, moved around a bit, worked for the Marriott for a while in Dallas-Fort Worth for a little bit, and then went home back to Boston and worked for the Marriott Hotel, Copley Marriott in Boston.
Very good. Well, I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so that's where I'm speaking to you from. I actually live in Denton, if you remember Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yes.
North of there, and I'm a senior. I'm 74 years old, and I have 20 children.
You look fabulous.
Do you have any children or a family?
Yes, I do. I have a daughter that's 32 years old. She lives in Maryland. And I have a son who is autistic, who's 13, who's musically he's a genius. And my wife is first violinist for the Marian Anderson String Quartet. And so we have a musical household.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like so much fun. Well, Bruce, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to really dig into your books and find out when you wrote the first one and why you chose the characters that you did.
Okay.
Let's let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
I'm Rox Berkey.
And I'm Charles Brakefield. We're award-winning co-authors, Brakefield and Berkey, of the Enigma book series. There are 10 books in the series, with book number 11 planned for release in January 2020.
Each story has a central technology focus ranging from identity theft to cryptocurrency, and now AI wars. These adult techno-thrillers pit cyber good guys against cyber thugs across the darknet.
In our world, technology is today's weapon of choice. You can enjoy ebook format, paper, or Audible. We want your feedback.
Until the next story, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, hello there, my friends. My name is Randy James, independent voiceover producer in the Dallas, Texas area, available to write and record a 30-second commercial, much like the one you're hearing right now. It's a great way to help increase awareness and exposure to your book title. It's easy to do. Simply call me and we'll brainstorm on a few ideas, and in a few hours, I'll whip something up and send you a digital file ready to use. Remember, call or text me, Randy James, at 214-762-1942.
Welcome to IndieLector.store, an online bookstore where the discriminating reader can find award-winning books. IndieLector.store is not a big corporation. so we can give up to 80% of the sales directly to the author. Help us support them by buying a great book at indielector.store.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
This is Charlotte Canion, and we have the privilege of talking to W Van Alystine today. Now, he's quite a character. If you've been listening to us, we know that he was in the Navy, he was a chef, he even cooked in the White House. But now let's ask him a little bit about his book. Bruce, tell us a little bit about the first book and who influenced you to write it.
Well, that's a funny story. My daughter came to visit me when I was living in California. And at bedtime, she said, "Dad, read me a bedtime story." Now she's 5 years old. And I said, "Okay," but I didn't have any books. And she said, "Make something up," because that's what Dad does, make up fairy stories. And I searched my brain for a little bit to try to think of, what can I tell her? And then I settled upon a chef who got taken by fairies to a magical place. And I started with that. And I told her a little bit each and every night when she was visiting me. And after a while, I said, this is pretty good. Maybe I need to write this down. And so I started writing it down. But when I wrote it as a screenplay, because that's what you do when you live in Los Angeles. You write screenplays. You write stories to be turned into movies. So I wrote it as a screenplay. And I had Robin Williams in mind and all of this to pitch it to him. And was passing it around. And folks said, this is pretty good. You need to develop the story a little bit more and the characters, and it would be better if you do it as a book first and then come back and we'll work on the screenplay. So 20 years later, book 1 is here, but it took me 20 years to sit down. It's on and off, and it's very difficult to write a book. I thought it was easier to write a screenplay, but
And that one is called The Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist?
That is correct. The first book. Actually, the entire series is The Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist. And each book thereafter, book 2 is The Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist, The Island of Milk and Honey. And so each book after the first will have its own subtitle.
Well, give us a little taste of literally, give us a little taste of what happens, in this sweet adventure.
Well, the story is about a 65-year-old pastry chef, Henry Peppermint Twist. He's a master pastry chef extraordinaire. And the founder of the Brackmeyer Sweets Company is about to retire, leaving his son in charge. Now, his son, Charles Brackmeyer Jr., is this real nasty man. He wants to replace all of the workers, all of them, with machines. The first people he gets rid of are the people over the age of 65, or getting to the retirement age. Those are the first people to go. And he replaces them with machines. But he sends these folks to a retirement facility in the countryside that he owns, by the way. But they don't stay there for very long. Henry meets an elf who brings him to this wonderful place made entirely out of sweets. In fact, all of the residents of this particular countryside retirement facility goes to the sweet lands and begins a new life there. And also too, Henry becomes young again in this. Now it's all fairy glamour, mind you. He's still 65, but it's all about how you think and feel about yourself. Henry never felt like he aged a day over 18 or whatever, or even 13 for that matter. As you get older, you still think of yourself the same way you did when you were those ages. And so in Henry's mind, he's always been young. But after a while, society seems to beat you up and say, well, you're this age, or you're this age, you're going to need this, you're going to need this. And you start to believe it after a while. And so he does, but he has to remember what it's like again. And the elves help him do that.
Yeah. Well, and you said that they carry on. And I was reading through, and you've got a Queen, I think it's Her Majesty Queen Moo, and then you've got Her Majesty Queen Sweet Sting.
Yes,
I'm picturing a big bumblebee or something.
Yes, that's in the second book. That's in the Island of Milk and Honey. I do lead into that book in book 1. And book 2 is about what happens on the Island of Milk and Honey. There's a conflict between the two territories, and it's over a several acre land called the Pristine Fields, that there's a particular flower that blooms, every moon, every cycle of the full moon. And they've been picked clean, and they've been picked clean before the bees had time to pollinate. And that's the irritating thing to them. And so one side blames the other, as they always do, and war has been declared. So Henry and all of the elves, mainly Mac and Captain Ogglebog and Emlyn, they all go over to try to smooth things over, and things get a little bit more tricky and complicated as it goes along.
Well, it sounds interesting. Yeah, it sounds interesting. So these are going to be, are you going to have then third and a fourth? I mean, are you continuing the stories?
Yes, I am working on book 3 right now. That will be called Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist, The Isle of Egg. And that's going to be a fun story.
Well, let's hope there's a chicken in there.
Oh, yes, a very...
Or some kind of bird that has an egg.
Yes, a very braggadocious bird, a chicken, or rooster, I should say.
Wait a minute, does this bird have a name yet?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember it right now. I think, yes, I believe it's King Cluck.
King Cluck. Well, yeah. So apropos. It's not cock-a-doodle-doo. But
No, it's King Cluck. Yes, yeah, and he's a very flamboyant type of bird, very feathery. I believe he will be a Polish chicken. There are different species and different breeds of chicken, and this particular chicken tends to have a lot of feathers covering its face and its eyes, so it can barely see it. And they're very reactionary birds, so there's going to be fun writing about that.
Oh, that sounds like... Now, I have to ask you said you started out telling these stories to your daughter. Has she contributed anything to your books and maybe the storyline? And, and you said, oh, I like that idea, or,
Well, when I got to the part about the candy that was in Twist Treats, like the Ventrilo sweets and the goody cookies was one of her ideas that came right to her forethought. I mean, kids are so imaginative, and I remember that age myself having so much imagination. I thought I was Peter Pan, when I was a little boy. Still do sometimes, but she gave me a lot of wonderful candy ideas, and what this cookie is. The goody cookies are for naughty children, and Ventrilo sweets. It's a candy you can put in your mouth and you can throw your voice that kind of thing, and Super Bounce Bubble Gum, and all kinds of other wonderful things. Yeah, she really, put a fire in my imagination, and to come up with all kinds of weird and wonderful things to put in the store.
That's interesting. Now, did your son, you said you had a son as well, did he contribute anything?
Well, my son
And I realize
has
he's
autism.
autistic.
Yeah,
but
he has autism, and really has problems communicating. He has speech delay and all of that. So we're slowly introducing these chapter books to him. I did get a chance to read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and he seemed to like that. I'm still working on pushing the twist books, his way. I don't think he's quite ready yet. He's a kid that really still likes one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. So Dad has to read that.
And that's fine. The reason I ask is I have a grandson that has autism and Asperger's, so I understand that as well. And I'm writing a book right now, and it's If Birds Could Talk, and it's about looking out my window, all of this COVID, and watching the cardinals and how they mate for life, and all that. So I'm kind of intrigued with all of this, little bit of fantasy and a little bit of reality and a moralistic, story to it.
There have been a few children that have heard the story who do have autism that love the book as well. So I know that their mom, one of my friends who has a child with autism, has heard the book, and every time he sees me, he says, "You're Christopher's dad. You wrote The Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist." And it's just so wonderful. Yeah, it's so wonderful, and they remember everything, and especially the parts that they like the most. They always hold on to certain things that just stand out to them, and they'll never forget it. And that really, I love that.
Yeah. Well, hang on to that thought. When we come back, we're going to get you to tell us how people can get your books, where they can get books, how they can contact you through, your emails and your website. We'll let our sponsors take a break.
Thank you for watching or listening to Indie Beacon Radio. Our sponsor, IndieLector.store, is the only bookstore that pays authors their fair share for book sales. Help authors to succeed and enjoy a great book by supporting them at IndieLector.store. Enjoy a 10% discount with coupon code SHOPPER20 at IndieLector.store. Coupon valid until December 31st, 2020. That's IndieLector.store, coupon code SHOPPER20.
The 5th Annual Authors Marketing Event. 2 days of live seminars in marketing for authors. The only organization that certifies authors in marketing. Live and free to the first 100 authors registered. Sponsored by Bubblish, empowering entrepreneurs, and Indie Lector Store, paying authors for their fair share. Head to www.2020.authorsmarketingguild.com today.
What started as a love letter to her son has become an international love letter for all parents to their children. Now you can read acclaimed author Shanalee Charbonneau's story to your children. When her son was very sick, she calmed him by singing her own song to him. She turned that song into the book, My Mama Loves Me, I'm Her Little Boy. She wrote 3 more magical books for all parents and kids 6 and under. Available at Indie Lector, Amazon, and all local and national outlets.
Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
This is Charlotte Canion, and I'm speaking with W Van Alystine, and he is the author of The Sweet Adventures of Harry P. Twist. And this is going to be an ongoing thing. Bruce, before we, ask you to tell us how we can get your books and, where our listeners, can you tell us about Under the Crescent Moon? I understand that has some poetry and stuff in it.
Oh, yes. So this particular book came to me shortly after my son was born. And I remember going to HEB on Via Maria and happened to look up, this was in December, happened to look up and saw this gorgeous moon. It was so bright. It was a crescent moon. And all I said was, under a silvery crescent moon. And then the rest of the poem came to me. And I had to pull over and write it all down before I got home. And then when I got home, I tweaked it a little bit. And after a while, I said, you know, boy, this would make a great children's book if I could find somebody to illustrate it for me. And months rolled by and years rolled by, and I was having a hard time pitching the book to publishing companies that I knew accepted manuscripts and also did board books. And so I said, well, I'm going to have to do this on my own. Later, somebody told me about a young lady that lives in my hometown here who is an illustrator or an artist. And I approached her and recited the poem for her. And she sat there, and in 2 seconds, she had a first drawing for me. And the drawing, I believe, if I can remember, was this drawing here. And I thought that was just amazing. I said, oh, we can use it. And I think I know exactly where that's going to go, what page. I found out, too, that she, too, was on the autism spectrum. And so this book is extra special because not only did I write this for my son, who I found out later had autism, but it was also illustrated by a person with autism who has Asperger's syndrome. So it's very, very special. Very
It's kind of amazing how God connects things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, okay, let me give you a moment to tell us where people can get your books and your websites and how they can reach you. I'm sure you probably do, you speak places and you do book signings. So
Sure,
give us some of that information.
Yes, I do. I can be reached at pixiepanbooks.com or hptwist.com. Either website, you can, my email is there, or you can just reach me at bwvanalstyne@gmail.com if you want me to appear. I'm available to do it. I also do Zoom readings too. If you have a school event, I can do those as well. Like I said, my books are available on either of those websites, hptwist.com for the Twist books, Pixie Pan books for Under the Crescent Moon. And also you can buy the books at any bookstore, your favorite bookstore. You can go to Amazon, you can go to Barnes & Noble, or if you have a small little bookstore, like there are a few in Houston, like Brazos Books or any of those, or Blue Willow, you can get the books there as well too. You can buy the books anywhere.
Oh, that sounds super. If you had to give advice to someone going into writing a children's book, what advice would you give them?
Read as many children's books as you possibly can, and not just, well, it depends on the type of writing you want to do. If you want to do board books, if you want to write chapter books, if you want to write books like Dr. Seuss, then I would familiarize yourself with those types of books and the writing style, et cetera, et cetera. It's a funny thing, I'll tell you how I came to complete the books that I had for the Twist books. You know, because I love children's books so much, I have quite a few. When I was looking for an illustrator, the first thing I did was turn to the children's books that I had on the shelves. And I reached out to every illustrator that I could to see who was available. One of the books I had was a book called The Fairy Door by B.E. Maxwell. And the illustrator was a young lady by the name of Merda Kamini, who is from the UK. And so I reached out to her, and she was available, and she did both my books, and they're beautiful illustrations for both my books. And she will be doing the third and the fourth, I'm sure. You know, going forward. So yeah, but read as much as you can, write as much as you can, and edit. Find a great editor to edit your books.
Yeah. Well, Bruce, this has been a fabulous interview. Thank you so very much for sharing all of your information and telling us a little bit about the sweet side of the adventures of, the sweet adventures of Henry P. Twist.
Thank you so much.
This is Charlotte Canion. And I want to remind you that a rose is like a book. You can't know its beauty until you look at it. And a book is like a rose. You won't know its full beauty till it's open. This is Charlotte Canion saying stay safe and bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website.